My name is Mia. Growing up, I had everything a kid could want, at least on the outside. Our house in the suburbs was big and always clean. My mom stayed home and made sure everything was spotless. My dad had a high-paying job as an important engineering executive. My little brother, Tony, and I went to the best private school in town. To other people, our life looked perfect. We had money, a nice home, and every material thing a kid could ask for. But what we didn't have was love and attention from our parents. From the moment Tony was born, it was clear that he was their favorite. My parents gave him all their attention. They cheered for everything he did, while I felt invisible. When Tony was 6 years old, he started playing hockey. You would have thought he won an Olympic medal with how excited my parents were. "That's our future NHL star," Dad would brag to anyone who would listen. "Mark my words, Tony is going to be the next Gretzky." Meanwhile, I sat there quietly with my straight-A report card, waiting for even a simple good job. But it never came. No one seemed to notice. It was like I was just there, while Tony was the center of their world. As the years passed, my parents' obsession with Tony's hockey career only grew. They spent thousands of dollars on the best equipment, private coaches, and special training camps. Everything in our family revolved around Tony and his dream of becoming a hockey star. He ate, slept, and breathed hockey. Don't get me wrong, I loved my brother. He was a good kid, even if he could be a little spoiled. It wasn't his fault that our parents treated him like he was more important than me. But sometimes it hurt. While he got brand new $1,000 skates, I was still wearing hand-me-down clothes. I couldn't help but feel a little jealous. I never spoke up about it, though. I kept my feelings to myself and found my own way in life. Even though I often felt like I was in the background, I worked hard in school. I studied, got good grades, and dreamed about my future. Little did I know, my feelings of being left out would only grow stronger in the years ahead. As I went off to college and started building my own life, Tony's hockey career continued to take over our family. Everything still revolved around him, and my parents barely noticed me. But I'll get to that part later. For now, let's go back a little. Even though I felt like I didn't matter much at home, I found a way to keep going. I knew that one day, I would make a life for myself, one where I wasn't just the other child. I worked really hard in school and earned a place at a great college. I decided to study interior design because it was my passion. It was the one thing in my life that felt truly mine, something not connected to Tony or his hockey career. For the first time, I felt free from living in his shadow. College was a whole new world for me. There were new people to meet, exciting experiences, and most importantly, freedom. I focused completely on my studies, determined to make the most of this chance to create my own future. Being away from home made me feel lighter, as if the constant pressure of being the forgotten child was finally lifting. I didn't call my parents often, and they rarely called me. When we did talk, our conversations were short and felt empty. We only talked about basic things, how school was going, what they were up to, but nothing deep. It was clear that their main focus was still on Tony and his hockey career. It wasn't until my junior year that I got a real update on what was happening at home. And it wasn't good news. One day, my phone rang, and when I answered, Mom sounded upset. "Mia, you won't believe this nonsense," she huffed. "Tony's coach is being completely unfair." I sighed and rolled my eyes, glad she couldn't see me through the phone. "Oh, what's going on?" "He's barely letting Tony play. Can you believe it? Your brother is 17 now, and suddenly, he's not getting the ice time he deserves. We've put so much money into his training, and now he's just sitting on the bench." I could already picture her pacing around the house, frustrated. "Your father and I have tried everything," she continued. "We even spoke to the coach and the team owner, but they won't listen to us." I didn't say much. What was there to say? It was the same story as always. Tony's hockey career was the center of their world, and they would do anything to make sure he succeeded. Time went by, and soon my college graduation day arrived. I put on my cap and gown, excited and proud of everything I had achieved. As I looked into the crowd, I quickly spotted my family. They were the ones distracted, checking their phones every few minutes. After the ceremony, I walked up to them, holding my diploma with a big smile. "Congratulations, sweetie," Dad said, giving me a quick hug. "Listen, we can't stay long. Tony has a big game tonight, and we promised to get there early to talk strategy with his coach." I watched them rush away, leaving me standing there in my graduation gown, feeling disappointed but not surprised. Same story, different day. A few months later, I had settled into my new apartment and started working my dream job as an interior designer. I loved every part of it: the creativity, the challenge, and the joy of transforming spaces with my ideas. One evening, while sketching out designs for a client, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Tony's contract wasn't renewed. He's devastated. Your father is trying to find him a new team. Please call your brother. He won't talk to anyone." I stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. After all these years, Tony's hockey career was still the most important thing in our family. And once again, they only reached out to me when it was about him. I looked at the message on my phone, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me felt bad for Tony. I knew how much hockey meant to him, and I could only imagine how crushed he must have felt. But another part of me, the part one wasn't proud of, felt a small sense of satisfaction. Maybe now my parents would finally realize that there was more to life than just hockey. I didn't call Tony that night, or the next. I told myself I was too busy with work, but deep down I knew I was avoiding the situation. I didn't want to get caught up in the drama. It was easier to focus on my own life, on the career I had worked so hard to build. Weeks turned into months. I would occasionally hear updates from my parents about Tony's struggle to find a new team. They talked about meetings with agents, tryouts, and endless disappointments. But it all felt distant, like hearing news about a stranger's life. I was too focused on my own world. I put everything into my work, taking on more clients and pushing myself to be more creative. My designs were starting to get noticed, and I was slowly making a name for myself in the industry. Just when I thought my life would be all about work, something unexpected happened. I met Owen. We met at a client's housewarming party. He was the charming guy who accidentally spilled red wine on the white carpet I had picked out for the house. As I helped him clean up the mess, we started talking. Before I knew it, we had spent the entire evening completely wrapped up in conversation, as if no one else was there. Our relationship grew quickly. Within 7 months, we were practically inseparable. By our first anniversary, we had decided to move in together. The next 2 years were filled with laughter, love, and the kind of happiness I had always wished for but never really believed I would have. On my 26th birthday, Owen took me out for what I thought was just a nice dinner to celebrate. After we ate, we took a walk through the park. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. As he slid the beautiful ring onto my finger, I felt a rush of happiness. But almost immediately, a familiar worry crept in. How would my parents react? Would they even care? To my surprise, when I called them with the news, they actually seemed excited. They insisted on meeting Owen as soon as possible and even offered to host a dinner for us. I was hopeful as we drove to my childhood home that weekend. For once, I thought maybe things would be different. At first, the dinner went well. My parents welcomed Owen warmly, and for a brief moment, I felt like I was the center of attention. But as we sat down to eat, my dad refilled his wine glass and turned to Owen with a familiar topic. "So, Owen," he said with a smile, "did Mia tell you about her brother Tony? He's quite the hockey player, you know." And just like that, I was back to being second place. I felt my heart sink as my parents started talking in detail about Tony's latest efforts to restart his hockey career. Owen, bless him, tried several times to bring the conversation back to our engagement, but it was like trying to stop a speeding train. No matter what, my parents always found a way to turn the focus back to Tony. Still, despite everything, the night ended on a good note. My parents insisted on paying for dinner, and before we left, my mom hugged me tightly. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart," she whispered. "Let's get together soon to start planning, okay?" I was shocked but pleased. For once, my life seemed to matter to them. Over the next few weeks, I found myself caught up in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. To my surprise, My mom became my closest companion during the process. We met for coffee to discuss color themes, spent weekends visiting venues, and even shared a tearful moment when I tried on wedding dresses. Even my dad got involved. He insisted on paying for half of the wedding and took the negotiations with Owen's parents as seriously as if he were making a business deal. One evening, I walked into the living room to find him staring intensely at the seating chart, as if it were a strategy for one of Tony's hockey games. "Dad," I said, surprised. "You don't have to do that. We can handle the seating arrangements." He looked up at me with a soft smile. "Nonsense, pumpkin. This is your big day. I want everything to be perfect." A warmth spread through my chest. This was all I had ever wanted, to feel like I mattered to my parents, to have them focus on me for once. One sunny afternoon, I sat at my parents' dining table, surrounded by fabric swatches and flower catalogs. My mom and Owen's mother, Ariane, were deep in a debate about the napkin colors. "I'm telling you, cream is the way to go," my mom insisted, waving a swatch in the air. "It's classic, elegant, and matches everything." Ariane shook her head, but blush would tie in beautifully with the bridesmaids' dresses. Both women turned to me. "Mia, what do you think?" I couldn't help but smile. "Honestly, I think either would look lovely." They both stared at me as if I had just grown another head. "Mia, dear," my mom said, patting my hand, "this is your special day. Every detail matters." I bit back a laugh. Who would have thought my mother would be this invested in something that was about me? It almost felt unreal. The great napkin debate was soon followed by an even bigger argument, whether to have a live band or a DJ. My dad and Owen's father, John, got so passionate about it that they nearly started arguing. Owen and I exchanged amused glances. "Maybe we could have both," I suggested. "A band for the ceremony and dinner, and a DJ for the dancing later." Both men looked at me with newfound respect. "Now that's thinking smart," Dad said proudly. "See, John? My girls got it all figured out." For the first time, I truly felt like I was at the center of my family's attention. And it felt wonderful. I had been enjoying all the attention from my parents, something I had never really felt before. It was nice to finally be included and feel important to them. But reality has a way of sneaking in. Just as we were finalizing the details for the venue, my mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face lit up with excitement. "Oh, this is wonderful news," she exclaimed. "Tony has a tryout with a team in Winnipeg next week." And just like that, the moment was gone. "That's great," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. "We'll need to reschedule the cake tasting," Mom continued, already typing away on her phone. "Your father and I have to fly out with Tony. This could be his big break." And just like that, the wedding planning took a back seat again. Over the next few weeks, this kept happening. Every time we made progress on the wedding, something came up with Tony. Our venue walkthrough? Cancelled because Tony had an important training session. Our meeting with the florist? Cut short because my parents had to rush to a last-minute interview with a scout. One evening, as Owen and I were going over the guest list, I finally broke down. "I don't get it," I sobbed into his shoulder. "They're spending thousands of dollars on flights and hotels for Tony's hockey dream, but they can't stay for one simple florist appointment." Owen held me close, stroking my hair. "I know it's hard, babe," he said softly. "But hey, at least they're helping with the wedding costs, right? That's something." I nodded, wiping my tears. He was right. The old me would have been furious. I would have yelled, canceled the wedding, and stormed off. But I was trying to be different. I was trying to be patient and understanding. The days passed quickly in a blur of wedding preparations. Even with all the interruptions, I felt excited. Everything was finally coming together. The venue was beautiful, the flowers were ordered, and my dress fit perfectly. I could almost feel the happiness waiting for me on my big day. Then, 1 week before the wedding, I was going over the final details with our planner when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. I smiled as I answered. "Hi, Mom. I was just about to call you about the rehearsal dinner tomorrow." But she didn't sound happy. Her voice was tense. "Mia, honey," she said slowly. "We need to talk." I felt my stomach drop. About what? I asked, suddenly nervous. Your father has an urgent business trip, she said hesitantly. And we're going to have to reschedule the rehearsal dinner. I frowned. Okay, well, when can we do it instead? Mom sighed. That's the thing, sweetheart. We might have to postpone the wedding too. I felt like someone had poured a bucket of ice water over me.
What?
Mom, please tell me you're joking. She sighed. I wish I was, dear. But your father's job is very important, you know that. And I need to go with him for support. We'll let you know when we're back, and then we can set a new date. My mind was spinning. This couldn't be happening.
Not now.
Not when we were so close to the wedding. Mom, the wedding is in a week. We can't just postpone it. What about the guests? The vendors? Everything is already paid for. I know it's inconvenient, Mia, but sometimes these things happen. You'll understand when you're older. I hung up the phone in shock, my entire world crashing down around me. How could they do this? After everything? After all the progress I thought we had made? Was I really still so unimportant to them? Owen found me an hour later, curled up on our bed with tears streaming down my face. I poured out the whole story between sobs, barely able to believe the words coming out of my own mouth. We spent the next few hours trying to come up with solutions. Could we postpone? What would that cost? Could we go through with it without them? But no matter what we thought of, nothing felt right. That night, I found myself mindlessly scrolling through social media, trying to distract myself from the disaster unfolding around me. And that's when I saw it. A post from Tony. Eastern Europe, here I come. Can't wait to show these European clubs what real hockey looks like. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for always having my back. This is going to be my big break. I can feel it. My stomach dropped. My hands turned ice cold. There was no business trip. My parents were flying halfway across the world, not for Dad's job, but for Tony. They were willing to sacrifice my wedding just so Tony could chase yet another hockey dream. With shaking fingers, I pressed the call button next to Tony's name. Each ring felt like an eternity. My heart pounded as I paced the living room, my emotions a storm inside me. Finally, he picked up.
Hey, sis.
Tony's voice was bright and cheerful. What's up? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Tony, I just saw your post about going to Eastern Europe. What's going on? Oh, man, it's incredible, he said excitedly. Mom and Dad are the best, you know? They're paying for everything, the flight, my agent, a fancy hotel. They're even coming with me for support. Can you believe it? My heart sank. So it was true. When exactly are you leaving? I asked, already dreading the answer. Next Saturday, he said casually. The tryouts start Thursday. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Next Saturday? I cut him off, my voice rising. Tony, that's my wedding day. There was a pause. Then, Tony chuckled. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, you can always reschedule, right? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me. I felt like I had been slapped. Reschedule? Tony, it's my wedding. How can you even suggest that? Tony sighed. Look, Mia, he said, his voice suddenly dismissive. My career is more important than any wedding. You can get married any day, but this might be my last chance to make it big in hockey. Something inside me snapped. Years of frustration, of always being second place, of always being ignored, all came rushing to the surface. Are you kidding me? I exploded. Do you have any idea how many times I've been pushed aside for your hockey dreams? How many times Mom and Dad have chosen you over me? And now you expect me to just step aside again? For my own wedding. Tony scoffed. Hey, it's not my fault Mom and Dad see my potential, he shot back. Don't hate the player, hate the game, sis. I stared at my phone in shock. Tony, you're 23 years old. Don't you think it's time to handle your own career without Mom and Dad holding your hand? He laughed, and the sound made my stomach turn. Why would I? They're happy to help, so why shouldn't I take it? I'd be stupid to turn down their support. I clenched my jaw. Can't you see how selfish you're being? Just this once. Can't you step back and let this be about me? Sorry, sis, he said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. I'm not sacrificing my career for your little party. And then the line went dead. I stood there, my phone still in my hand, my mind racing. I couldn't believe it. My own brother, the person I had stood by, supported, and cared about, had dismissed my wedding like it was nothing. And my parents? They had lied to me. They had chosen Tony again. They had abandoned me on one of the most important days of my life, all for another one of Tony's endless hockey dreams. A deep, burning anger bubbled up inside me. Why was it always Tony? Why did his dreams always matter more than mine? Why should I have to pause my life for him? I sank onto the couch, my mind spinning. All those years, I had tried to be patient. I had tried to make excuses for them. I had told myself they didn't mean to make me feel invisible.
But none of it mattered now.
Owen and I barely spoke as we drove to my parents' house. The air between us was thick with unspoken words. I gripped his hand tightly as we pulled into the driveway. You've got this, he whispered, squeezing my fingers. I nodded, drawing strength from him. My mom answered the door, her usual warm smile fading the moment she saw our faces. Mia? Owen, she said hesitantly. What a surprise. Come in, come in. We stepped inside, finding Dad in the living room. He was staring at his laptop, his finger quickly tapping at the keyboard. I caught a glimpse of the screen before he hurriedly shut it. Flight bookings. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. Mom and Dad hadn't even told me the truth. They had been planning this all along. I took a deep breath, standing tall. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice steady. We need to talk. I took a deep breath and looked my parents in the eyes. We need to talk about the wedding and about Tony's trip to Europe. Their smiles disappeared. I saw the guilt flash across their faces before they quickly tried to cover it up. What about Tony? Dad asked, pretending to be clueless. I told you, I have an important business trip. Stop. I cut him off, my patience finally running out. I know the truth. Tony told me everything. A heavy silence filled the room. My parents exchanged nervous glances, their act falling apart. Mom sighed, realizing they couldn't hide it anymore. Yes, we're going with Tony to Europe for his hockey tryouts. But Mia, you have to understand. Understand what? I snapped, years of frustration boiling over. That once again you're choosing Tony over me? That my wedding, one of the biggest days of my life, means nothing compared to his hockey dreams. Dad's face hardened. Now listen here, young lady, he said, his voice firm. You're being selfish. This is Tony's future we're talking about. He's talented, and this could be his big break. As his family, we need to support him. I let out a bitter laugh. Selfish? You think I'm the selfish one? I shook my head, my voice rising. What about all the times you've picked Tony over me? My graduations? My achievements? And now my wedding? When has it ever been about me? Mom's eyes were pleading. Mia, you're an adult now. You have your career, your life with Owen. Tony still needs our help. To do what? I shot back. To chase a dream that isn't happening? He's 23. When are you going to let him stand on his own 3 feet? Another silence. My words hung in the air, the truth impossible to ignore. I took a deep breath and made my decision. I'm not canceling or postponing my wedding. If you choose not to be there, that's your choice. But I'm done putting my life on hold for Tony's dreams. Shock flickered across their faces. Then, Dad's expression darkened. Now you listen here, he growled, jabbing a finger at me. We're paying for half of this wedding. You'll do as we say, or we'll cancel every payment we've made. You can't afford this wedding without us. I felt Owen tense beside me, ready to defend me. But I squeezed his hand, silently telling him to let me handle this. Actually, Dad, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. We can afford it. Owen and I are ready to take out a loan to cover your half. We'll pay you back every single cent you've spent. The next week was a blur of wedding rehearsals, bachelor and bachelorette parties, and last-minute preparations. Through it all, a tiny part of me kept hoping my parents would change their minds, that they'd show up and apologize. They didn't. The morning of my wedding arrived, bright and clear, as if the universe itself was celebrating with us. And despite everything, the ceremony was more beautiful than I had ever dreamed. I walked down the aisle alone, not on my father's arm, but on my own. It wasn't just because he wasn't there. It was a symbol of the strength I had found within myself. I no longer needed my parents' approval. I had built my own life, and I was proud of it. At the end of the aisle, I saw Owen waiting for me, his face filled with love and happiness. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. We exchanged vows, our voices steady and sure. We promised to love and support each other, no matter what life threw our way. When we sealed our vows with a kiss, the room erupted in cheers and applause. The people around us, our friends, our chosen family, showered us with love. The reception was a blur of laughter, dancing, and pure joy. We ate, we drank, we celebrated with the people who truly cared about us. Every moment was filled with happiness. The photographer captured every beautiful memory, Owen and I gazing into each other's eyes, our friends lifting us onto their shoulders, all of us laughing as we tried and failed to pull off a group dance. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. But reality always finds a way back. A week after Owen and I returned from our honeymoon, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I stared at the screen, my stomach tightening. I already knew what this was about. I hesitated before answering. "Mia, sweetie." Mom's voice came through, sounding tired and strained. "We're back from Europe.
Can we meet?
We need to talk." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "No, Mom," I said firmly. "I don't think that's a good idea." But your brother didn't make the team," she said, her voice breaking. "He's devastated, Mia. He needs his big sister right now." I closed my eyes, fighting the familiar urge to give in, to be the one who understood, to always be the one who put my feelings aside. But not this time. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But that's not my problem anymore. Please don't call me again. Focus on Tony. He clearly needs you more than I do." Then, before she could say another word, I ended the call and blocked their numbers. A wave of emotions rushed over me, sadness, relief, and a strange sense of peace. I was finally free. The next day, I transferred every single cent my parents had contributed to the wedding back into their account. It was a huge amount, and Owen and I would be paying off the loan for a while, but it didn't matter, because it bought us our freedom. And then, the final blow came. A few weeks later, my friend Rosalie called. "Mia," she said, "have you seen what your parents just posted on social media?" I sighed.
No.
"What now?" "They're playing the victim," she said angrily, "saying you were selfish for getting married without them. Talking about how heartbroken your dad was that he didn't get to walk you down the aisle." I wasn't surprised. I had expected this. What I didn't expect, though, was what happened next. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles, the ones who had been there, the ones who had seen how my parents treated me over the years. They stepped in. One by one, they started commenting, calling out my parents for their lies. They told the truth about the years of favoritism, about how my parents had always put Tony first, about how they had abandoned me on my wedding day for another one of his hockey dreams. And just like that, my parents' perfect story fell apart. I was touched by my family's support, but I didn't respond to the online drama. That part of my life was over. Months passed, and life settled into a beautiful, peaceful routine. Owen and I focused on our careers, traveled, and made plans for our future. For the first time, I felt truly happy, without the weight of my family's expectations dragging me down. Then, we got the best news of all. We were expecting our first child. And for the first time, our happiness wasn't clouded by family drama. It was just pure joy. Every now and then, I would hear updates about Tony and my parents from relatives. Tony had started drinking heavily after his hockey dreams fell apart. My parents were panicking, trying to fix him, dragging him from one therapist to another. A small part of me felt sorry for them. This was the result of their own choices, their years of favoritism, their constant enabling. But a much bigger part of me knew that it wasn't my problem anymore. One evening, I sat in the nursery, gently rubbing my growing belly. The room was filled with soft colors, warm light, and tiny baby clothes neatly folded in drawers. Everything about it felt safe, loving, and full of hope. And that's when it hit me. The family I had always longed for, the love and support I had craved my whole life. I was creating it right here, right now.